All
All
right,
right,
guys. I
go
can
ahead, Jerod.
start us off here. So I was down at the state finals for Ford Field, and I'll just say, man, 5 blowouts, or excuse me, 5 running clocks,
Mm.
all 8 games blowouts. Closest game was 22 points. I'll bring that back at the very end of this, but I'm going to quickly go through the divisions.
Didn't you say you thought that this might be a weekend with a bunch of close games?
No,
I feel like
did
last week
I don't
you said
think
there
I
might
did.
be.
Maybe I did. I
Maybe
thought
not.
I predicted the other thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wonder what went the other way, like why all these games turned into blowouts.
I don't know. I'll go through each one of them and give my opinion on what I thought I saw. I'll start with D8. I mean, nothing really to report. Beale City, I mean, they're there every year. This is their 3rd straight title in school history. Drew Block had a great game, 20 rushes, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. My favorite part of their team, all the coaches have these very sharp Nike Pro Fit Alabama A for Aggies blue crew necks. Very sharp look on the sidelines, but a good program. I mean, we're going to see them again there next year. So congrats to Beale City in D8. In D7, Millington, this was kind of a game I thought was going to be close. Usually D7 is a good game no matter what. Same thing with D8. How rare is a blowout in Division 8?
Right.
Division 7 was a blowout. Millington beat Monroe St. Mary's Catholic Central. Millington won the award for best uniforms of the weekend. If you saw the Arizona Cardinals yesterday versus the Vikings, it's literally the same exact uniforms. All white, sweet, shiny cardinal on the side of the helmet. Just very, very sharp uniforms. But Millington had 4 really tough linebackers, all of them, 5'10", 5'11", 200 pounds. I'll shout them out real quick. Number 5, Dallas Walsh. Number 4, Cade Ward. Number 11, Brevin Hendricks. Number 2, Logan Myers, who had 2 sacks and 8 tackles. Just looked like the 4 best athletes on the field, and they played with the edge to them. I really liked their squad. But Dallas Walsh was definitely the star. I mean, he had 8 tackles, 120 yards rushing on offense. But most impressive, we interviewed him after the game. You would have thought he's done 50 interviews, post-game interviews. Just an impressive young kid. Shouted out the Millington community, said, look at the crowd. The entire town is here. I was really impressed with him. Moving forward to D6. D6, my God, Lumen Christie is damn good. I mean, Herb Brogan, 14th state title in school history. Also, They have elite uniforms. I mean, they got the Notre Dame Gold Dome helmets. I'm not sure how. They must cost a fortune, or they have some special dealer. I mean, if I'm Corona, next time we get our helmets refurbished, can we get this shiny look? Why do we have these like flat gold ugly helmets with a cartoon sticker on the side? Look at Lumen Christie, look at Notre Dame Prep. Like, let's get with the 2025 wave.
They used to be shiny in the 90s.
Yeah, and it's like they've lost their luster, man. I used to talk about how majestic those Corona helmets are. Now it's like when you look at Lumen Christie and Notre Dame Prep, you're like, we are way behind in this facet. But this was just an unfair matchup. I mean, you could have played this game 1,000 times. It's a blowout 1,000 times. Lumen Christie, 435 yards in the ground, averaged 11 yards per rush. I love their offense. It's so simple. They're pulling a guard and a tackle every play and just mauling guys on the offensive line. But the star of the show was Kadale Williams, running back. He's heading to Central Michigan. 310 rushing yards. That's the state finals record. He could have ran 500 yards. I'm not even joking you. Final stat line, 27 rushes, 315 yards, 5 TDs. My favorite part, he's like Barry Sanders. He's having this amazing game. You wouldn't know it. He's helping guys up on the other team. Every time he scores, there's no celebration, just handing it off to the ref. I'm sure part of that is Herb Brogan's program. And I just got a kick out of that kid. I just was really impressed. I think he's going to be a very good future Central Michigan Chippewa. Have you guys ever heard of a guy running for 310 yards in a state title? Obviously not. I mean,
do you remember off the top of your head how much Donovan Edwards had? Didn't he go off?
It was in the 200s. I want to say 250. That was probably the best game I've ever seen a running back play at the state finals. But this was just a man among boys is kind of how it felt. Just Lansing Catholic. I know they beat our local teams, Durand and Chesaning, and they're a good squad in their own right. But this was bringing a knife to a gunfight is kind of how it felt. In D5, this was the shocker of the weekend to me. I mean, Ted, you told us how good Notre Dame Prep was.
Now you know.
Game.
Yeah.
I mean, I really thought this was the Frankenmuth team that was going to kind of get over that Ford Field hump. I mean, they have the usual Frankenmuth talent. On top of that, they have a defensive lineman going to Michigan State, Derek Simmons, who's just an absolute man-child. But Notre Dame Prep, just very, very impressive. Pretty much a college offense.
Yeah.
Their quarterback, Sam Stowe, 15 of 21 passing, 290 yards, 4 touchdowns, hit 8 different receivers. It's like watching a team on a totally different level. And Frankenmuth just was lost on the perimeter. Just really had no chance of shutting them down. I do wonder if the game would have been different. So here's how the game started. Frankenmuth hits a big-time counter for about an 80-yard gain. As the kid is running to the end zone, he switches hands, fumbles. Notre Dame Prep jumps on it. Very next play, 87-yard screen pass, touchdown. And it's easy to brush that aside as you look at the score, like, oh, they would have never been close. But these are high school kids, man. Right. 16, 17 years old. You're at Ford Field. You're gung-ho. You're watching your teammate sprint down the sideline for a touchdown. Literally 1 minute of real-life time later, you're down 7-0.
Right.
It's just hard to overcome that. So it's a shame. I really do love Frankenmuth. I love their team. Phil Martin, I think he runs a great program. But just for whatever reason, they can't get over that Ford Field hump, man. And this was just an ugly game. Notre Dame Prep, I wrote down the coach's name. I really wanted to shout him out. Pat Fox. He's actually a Frankenmuth graduate who commutes every day like hour to Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. He's like the Cliff Kingsbury of MHSAA football. What an impressive offense with these concepts they were running. I was really, really, really impressed. I mean, even if you remember the Corunna game from 2 years ago when Corunna won, like guys were open, they're dropping passes. They had a couple fumbles that killed them. Like it was a game where you felt like could have went another way if it was played again. Moving on to D4, probably the weakest division, I would say, pound for pound in the entire at all of Ford Field. Goodrich absolutely drubbed Niles. You know how I like to say Michigan mulling somebody to death? Mm-hmm. They Chase Burnetted Niles to death. Niles is a cool little squad. They were definitely my favorite heading into the weekend. Triple option. Very cool story where the coach, Scott Shaw, learned this offense from his son, who's an offensive coordinator at Mishawaka High School. On Thanksgiving Day, they actually went to Notre Dame's indoor practice facility. Riley Leonard came and spoke to them. They got to practice there. A lot of really cool stuff, but man, they just ran into a buzzsaw in Goodrich. And Goodrich is coach Tom Allward. I mean, you can't give this guy enough credit. They are so consistent year after year. I think they've had maybe one down year the entirety he's been at Goodrich. They run that power eye, but they do it in a creative way. So, for example, one time, their first two drives of the game, first score they had, they ran a play action roll out to the left and hit Max Macklem, who's going to Central Michigan, for a touchdown. Very next drive, they run the same exact action. It's looking like it's going to be a rollout throw to Max Macklem. All of a sudden, they have Chase Burnett leak out to the other side. It's a halfback slip screen. Goes for 50 yards. So although they run power eye, it's amazing how they run so many different things out of similar looks that makes it tough to defend. You would think power eye, just they're running the ball right down your throat. There's a little more to it than that. Moving on to D3, this was the most impressive team I thought I saw all weekend. Zeeland West absolutely killed Detroit MLK. Coach John Shillito, one of the most underrated coaches in the state. I mean, they're so good. They run the wing tee to perfection. The deception on the fakes is incredible. All the guys carry out their fakes 20 yards downfield. But the kid who really impressed me was their fullback. Number one, Keaton Hendricks. We highlighted this kid in warmups, and I saw him, and he's a tall and frail little guy. And I thought, man, this is their fullback? The kid could run like a deer. He sprung 2 fullback traps to the house, and he also had 3 receiving touchdowns. He set another state record, 6 total touchdowns. That's a state record. But just an impressive kid, man. He was fullback. He was tall. He was frail. Great pass catcher out of the backfield and breakneck speed where he's a long strider where if he got an open field, he was going to house it every single time. Zeeland West, I think, pound for pound, was really the only team in a lesser division that I thought could compete with Cass Tech because MLK beat Cass Tech earlier in the year, and Zeeland West just mauled them in that game. In D2,
Zeeland West, are they the Ducks or the Chicks?
They are the Ducks. Yeah.
DUX.
Damn good squad, man. You can say or watch when they make it to Ford Field, they're going to win that game.
I know. Friend of the pod, Jason Hutton, has been Zeeland West. I think has been his number one team all season. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know how they slid under my radar. Wow, are they impressive? It is a very good squad, very well coached, tough. Just a good squad. Orchard Lake St. Mary's beat Byron Center in D2. Orchard Lake St. Mary's had a stable of like 4 or 5 running backs that were just studs. For starters, they have Darren Williams, who's Division I commit, and Darren Williams, who's committed to Michigan State, and Bryson Jones, who's another Division I player. They combined for 300 yards on the ground. I really think Williams is going to be a stud for Michigan State. Very versatile. He runs this wing tee offense at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, but I think he's 6 foot, a little bit thinner, could definitely be a good slot receiver as well. Their coach is Jermaine Gonzalez, former All-American at Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the 90s under George Porrett. Went on to Michigan, was a quarterback and an athlete there. I thought he did a great job. Their pre-snap formation changes, motioning, I thought was very creative and clever. And actually, shout out to Alex Newell, former OLC Marauder.
Axel Newell.
Or Axel Newell, excuse me. Yes, Axel Newell. They don't ask much of him, but the biggest play of the game, 4th and 17, they're about to score a touchdown. He takes a huge shot, completes one of his 2 passes the entire game, takes a big-time shot from a blitzing linebacker, throws a perfect seam route that put the nail in the coffin for that game. And then one thing I want to shout out on Byron Center's side, their quarterback, Langdon Tungate, really impressive kid. Just a very good high school quarterback. Tough as nails. Didn't quit the entire game. Just an impressive athlete with his legs and his arms. And he was my kind of guy. I liked everything about him. All right, last one, then I'm done. All right, D1, Cass Tech beat Hudsonville. Cass Tech, 2 impressive studs. CJ Sadler, already been offered by Bama. Alex Graham, free safety, committed to Colorado. He is going to be a stud for primetime at Colorado. He was unbelievably impressive. Just everywhere on the field. Offense, defense, took an end around for like 80 yards to the house, had an interception, just an all-time stud. The one thing that was a very confusing to me for Hudsonville, they had their corners playing, I'm not joking you, 15 yards off the line. 15 yards off the line, essentially just daring Cass Tech to hit you for hitch routes. And that's what they did. Cass Tech has a freshman quarterback, Donald Tarbin. He's the next stud in this state. 15 to 20, 176 yards, 3 tutties. But the thing that cracked me up, so they have a 1st and 10 on the 20-yard line. Hudsonville's corners are standing on the 2-yard line. Cass Tech runs like a little post, throws it right inside this corner, sitting at 15 yards depth for a touchdown. I'm like, what are you protecting? You're standing on your own goal line. You're backing up into the end zone just so they could throw it right underneath you. Like Hudsonville finally got their kind of act together in the second half. They started dialing up some good trick plays. It just seemed like they were overwhelmed. And I get worrying. I mean, obviously, Cass Tech has the athletes to run by you on the perimeter, but like you got to kind of live with that at some point. If you're sitting 15 yards off the ball, 1, you're not helping in run defense. 2, you're not even helping them keep the ball in front of you as they're hitting you for post routes for touchdowns. It just was a bit of a debacle. I think that they kind of feel like they probably psyched themselves a little bit out in this game. And if it was another rerun, I think it's a different story somewhat. But Cass Tech, just freaking impressive. That's a damn good squad. Anything stick out to you guys out of those 8 games?
I was going to mention, I saw the state records that fell. That's always cool when you see that, individuals or a team, just put up a performance like that.
Yeah, I'd been on that Notre Dame train, and they didn't disappoint. After they pounded our Cavaliers, they showed what they were made out of. I mean, I love their offense as well, excellently coached. And, by the way, Jerod, well done. I mean, we started off this high school football season with our prep pigskin preview and come full circle with a great recap there of the state finals. So you were paying attention to what you were doing that couple days, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah. That's your job, son. So
right.
that's what you had to do.
Dad.
Yeah, but it's still a fun weekend. But man, you can't help but walking out of that truck on Saturday night with 5 running clocks, no game close at all. Going, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend 20 minutes harping on the division thing. We do that every week. It's never going to change. But my God, I mean, we're handing out participation trophies to some of these squads.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be an asshole, but that's the reality. And if we trimmed it down to, Ted, you suggested 6 in the past. I think 4 is the right number. Yeah, less teams are going to make it. Less teams are going to win a state title. But my God, those titles are going to mean something. And the right team are going to make it.
Right.
Like just some of these games, man, it really was like men among boys.
Right.
I don't know how else to explain it. It just is. It's just disappointing.
It could change. I mean, they have changed divisions in the past, but I do think I look at it right now, the way it's set up with 8-player football having to go up to the Superior Dome. And I agree with you on the competition factor on the 8 different divisions. Go to 6. Play the other 2 8-man finals the same weekend. They all get to play at Ford Field where the Lions play, and try that for a few years, see what happens. But it's not working this way.
And the thing is it would probably work out just fine. There'd be a couple years where, some people are complaining about it because maybe they would have made the playoffs in the old system and they don't make it. But like eventually it would work out. And I do think it would help with the matchups at Ford Field.
Right.
Because, you get some cool stories like Niles or some of those other teams you were talking about, Jerod. But it's kind of like, but once they get to the finals against some of these powerhouse programs, they're just overmatched. So.
And is it worth it to get embarrassed like at Ford Field?
No.
Like where you have 100 yards of total offense? Who's winning in that situation?
Right.
You know what's better? Niles knocking off a division, whatever the new divisions would be, a Division II size school in districts because they are a good squad. Maybe they're not a squad that's going to be at Ford Field. I'm not trying to be a jerk to Niles.
Right.
But like, for example, Goodrich got shut out by Franken.
Right.
And so it's like, it's the divisions are like Division 4 has a hole. Country Day isn't what they used to be. GRCC dropped to Division 5. MLK is technically Division 4, but they play up in Division 3 because it's like if they win that title, they look around and go, wow, what did we really even accomplish?
Right.
So we have the 8 divisions. Think about what Saginaw and Arthur Hill are combined. Flint, I saw an old video of it from the 1930s. There used to be 15,000 people watching Flint Northern versus Central on Thanksgiving Day. You can't even field a high school in Flint anymore.
Right.
What are we doing with the same rules we had in those days in a time where we have half the enrollment we used to have as a state? This is the result. But anyway, let's move on because it is awesome seeing those champions get crowned, and all those teams are damn good that hoist a trophy. It's just a shame that we don't get good games.
No, I think I think we're all probably on board with what you're saying. Wasn't it Coach Crockett, Morris's head coach, when we talked to him? He said he agrees with what we're saying, but he didn't think that the MHSAA would ever do it just because that would be less teams making the playoffs, and they want more involvement. So
well, it's a problem, and we'll see what happens. And again, good breakdown, Jerod. While we're on the topic of high school football, the big story here locally. For you people, listening out of the area, we have a local high school, Durand, that had a little controversy on the field in one of their games this year to kind of set the stage. And maybe you can help me out if I'm missing something here. They're playing a local team, Bath, and one of the Durand players way opposite across the field from the Durand sideline got popped really hard. And he came up, and apparently he was wobbly. Right. So one of the teammates said, "Hey, coach, got to get him out of here." And people in the stands were yelling at the coaching staff. So they brought the kid over to the sideline. The training staff took a look at him, and he went back to the coach and says, "Hey, man, I just had the wind knocked out of me. Put me back in." Coach put him back in for one play. And then there was still an uproar from the stands. And then also, I think a couple players maybe had said something. So they pulled him out of the game. I believe he sat the rest of the game. Right. So
that's my understanding. Yes.
That set the stage. Okay. And after that, apparently, one of the parents of one of the other players, not the parents of the player that was injured, but some other player's parent, got a hold of the superintendent, and you can see what's happening. They raised a ruckus, and now it's become a firestorm. And, it's already come to a special school board meeting last week where they had all these people from Durand community members speaking at the microphone to the school board. Pretty much 90, I think probably almost 100% were backing the coach. And by the way, John Webb, a former guest on this show, enjoyed talking with him, has turned that program around on the win-loss department, had an undefeated 9-0 season a couple of years ago, had a winning record this year. So they have another school board meeting going on tonight. We're recording this on Monday night. So anyway, it's on social media. Everybody's in an uproar, and I'm just going to give you my opinion without knowing every bit of the facts. I saw the 13-page report where they, the principal of schools interviewed, some players, some other people, some coaches, but just knowing what I know and knowing how these things should be handled. Let's just say, for example, Coach Webb maybe didn't handle it the proper way. Let's just say that. Okay. Hypothetically, is it the end of the world? I mean, no. Is it grounds to be fired just by your superintendent? Not getting any input from the athletic director, the principal. Now I understand there was some conflict of interest there with some relatives. I get that, but isn't this a matter where the athletic director, the coach, and if the superintendent is the one that has to be involved, since one of the parents involved them, don't you have like a meeting? Like a closed door meeting and say, "Hey, Coach Webb, we cannot tolerate this. If there's a potential concussion, you have to handle it properly." And I'm not even saying he didn't, but you just got to remind him, even if you have to write him up and say, "Hey, I have to put this in your record.
Right.
Don't do it again." Isn't that the way to handle it?
It's an overreaction.
You would think the phrase paid administrative leave, that you hear a lot of times, like firing him right away. Again, we maybe don't know all the facts. We'll find out some more as all these meetings happen and stuff like that. But waiting until like letting cooler heads prevail. All right, some people are reporting this. We know what happened on tape. He's even released a video explaining his side. Put him on leave. Let's have some meetings. Let's let some people talk about it. And then let's go talk to Coach Webb. And if it does get to the point where, yes, he did really drop the ball, okay, maybe a firing is justified. But if it's like, no, actually, the kid was medically cleared. And as far as Coach Webb knew, he was good to go. And, maybe he did handle it. And maybe a suspension would be warranted or something like that. But it does seem like the superintendent jumped the gun a little bit with a firing, because now that as we're hearing some more of the facts and details come out, it doesn't seem like Coach Webb knew the kid was potentially concussed and just threw him back in the game. You know what I mean? It reminds me of Jerod. I mean, Ted, you probably remember too, Jerod, before you jump in. It reminds me of back in when Brady Hoke was at Michigan, and there was the quarterback there, Shane Morris. I think it was against Minnesota. He got blasted and got picked up off the turf and was definitely wobbly and, whatever. Continued to play and then did end up coming out because it was clear something was wrong. And so obviously everyone's blasting Brady Hoke. How are you letting this happen? How are you letting this happen? And Brady Hoke's defense basically was like, the kid was, I can't see everything that happened. I mean, he was medically cleared. He was out there, people think these coaches can see every single thing and know every single thing that happens. And sometimes that's just not how it works in sports, so it's a shame that it's gotten to this point. Hopefully the kid is okay, first and foremost, but then to jump the gun and fire a coach that was really doing some good things for the community is also a shame.
Yeah, I remember Durand actually in the past. They were so bad in football, basketball, and I remember they finally got some life. Jeff Long was a basketball coach for them, and I remember he got fired, and it was a whole hellstorm. Basically, he got fired because he was like swearing on the sideline, I think is what the reason was. So it's like it's just an overreaction. This does not, to me, seem like, from my understanding of how this went down, it does not seem like Coach Webb said to this kid, "Oh, you just got your bell rung. Get back out there." Like, it seems like it was kind of a confusing situation. The kid seemed fine to him. Like, apparently he mentions in his video that this kid wobbled. I still haven't seen this other video that shows this bad wobbling. I couldn't tell from his video this kid wobbling or whatnot. And then they call a timeout. He goes out there for one more play, doesn't get any contact. They call a timeout. The players tell him, "Hey, you got to take him out." He takes him out. He's out the rest of the game.
Right.
Was it a perfect situation? Do you wish he didn't go back out there for one more play? Yeah. Is it worth firing? And we're seeing the hellstorm that's come from this. Clearly, I think the majority of the support is behind him in Durand. It just was an overreaction. If you want to just say you did something, suspend him for a game, okay, great. If you want to ream him in your office, great. It just seemed jump to conclusions a little bit.
Yeah, and it also, I've been around the block a few times. You can tell by all the gray hair I have. There's more things behind it. It's the whole political thing. There's parents. Right. I mean, when you look at something like this, and it's not the father of the player that's lodging the complaint, it's somebody else. And it makes me think, and again, I don't know all the facts, but it makes me think, well, I wonder if he's getting the playing time he should or something, and the parents got a vendetta. So they're going to go directly to superintendent. Again, that's 100% speculation, but I've seen it before. I've seen it many, many times. Yep. And this is just my editorial comment when it comes to that. Okay. When I was young, all right, my dad would never, ever interfere with a coach. He'd say, he'd be on my side if I'd come home whining about something, but he would never get a hold of the coach. And my message to any kids out there, you don't deserve a spot if you don't earn it. If you might be upset at the coach, but you don't cry to mommy and daddy to have them go get a hold of the administrator and get you playing time. What you do is you work your ass off and you earn that spot.
To be fair, I'm not sure if that's who knows if that did happen. I mean,
well, I'm not saying it did, Jerod. I'm just saying that's an example of some.
Right. It's just sad. I mean, like you said, he's done a good job as the coach. From the outside looking, it really seems like he's done a good job. I mean, Durand couldn't win a football game forever. Now they're 9-0. It was like the story of the season across the state when they did that a couple years ago. Yeah. And I'm with you. It's like, I lost my train of thought. I got so many different thoughts going. Go
ahead. It's a tough situation because I mean, Ted, you're talking about your generation,
right?
And I forget if it was Jerod or Ted. One of you said about the bell rung type of thing.
Yeah.
We all played football. Jerod, you're a little younger than us, but I mean, you definitely remember. Ted, definitely back in your day.
I'm sure I had a concussion one time.
Right, shake off the cobwebs. You get back out there. By the time you were playing, Jerod, concussions were more. We were more aware of what concussions were and stuff like that. Sure. So you can see both sides to that situation alone. If they really think the kid had a concussion and Coach Webb didn't care, put him back out there, that's a whole other discussion.
100%.
If Coach Webb didn't see what happened and was told by the staff that he was cleared, I think you need to then put that on the medical staff. I mean, if Ted, you said that it hasn't been reported that the kid actually had a concussion, so he obviously, maybe it was just a bell rung situation. Can
they tell a concussion? I mean, I'm not a doctor, but can you tell 2 or 3 days later? Because that's when he went to the doctor.
They can. It depends on the degree of the concussion. Sometimes it even doesn't. It gets worse because that's why sometimes if you have it, they don't want you to go to sleep and stuff like that. If you really do have something going on. So I mean, if the kid's symptoms lingered for a couple days, then yes, they could tell. So that's where jumping to a firing makes this tough, because it's like let's hear what happened. Let's hear from the medical staff. What happened when the kid came in the sidelines? Did you do a concussion test? Did you just ask him, "You okay?" "Yep." "Okay, go back out there." Because if that's the case, you need to have a discussion with your medical staff, because as we know nowadays, concussions are the biggest thing ever. I mean, in the NFL, if a dude gets hit, he's out of the game immediately, and he goes under the blue tent, and they're doing test after test after test. So if that's the case, then you need to have a discussion with the medical staff. And as a head coach, if your medical staff says, "Kid's good, yeah, we did the test and looks good," what are you to do? You're going to put him back out there. And then if players and stuff like that see that clearly something's wrong, you pull him back out, which Coach Webb did. So you can see both sides in that sense. That's where the facts needed to come out before you fired him. Because it's like,
when did this happen?
If you did a concussion test and he was cleared, what else are you supposed to do? If you didn't do a concussion test, that's a whole different conversation.
I don't know, Jerod. The first I caught wind of it was Friend and Community News, a Facebook blog post here, and then all hell's broken loose since then.
Here's the shame. I don't think he's going to get his job back. I heard the athletic.
I don't know how you can at this point.
Yeah, now it's like it's a battle, and both sides probably digging in.
Oh, lawyers are involved.
Reality, I think he's a good coach. I thought he was doing a really good job there. And one thing I thought was kind of funny about this whole situation, I don't know how else you're supposed to find out any more info about what happened other than doing what they did, but it's still kind of funny reading what some of these players are saying. Like you just mentioned it, Ted. Basically, it's like, a lot of times on any team I played on, even the good ones, probably still 60% of the team was not happy with how either playing time or this or that, and they didn't like the coach. So now you're like giving them an anonymous way to basically get this guy fired.
Yep.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what to.
Well, it's the same thing. Now these are 15, 16-year-old kids. They're not even legal adults. So it's kind of like that's a whole other side. Like you can't. This isn't grown adult people that you're interviewing. So I don't know if you can even use their name in your reporting. I don't know the legal side of that. But it shouldn't. Right. And you probably shouldn't, if 16-year-old kid. So you probably shouldn't even be interviewing them, really, is what it comes down to. If you're going to leave them as anonymous, you probably shouldn't even be interviewing them. But it reminds me of when Jim Harbaugh was going through all that stuff at Michigan, and there were all those reports from anonymous Big Ten coaches giving their opinions. And it's like, if you're going to give your opinion on this, put your name on it. Right. If you're really going to say Jim Harbaugh should be fired for what he did, put your name on it. If you're being anonymous, that you don't have any backbone. If you're telling a head coach he should be fired, put your name on it so we can ask you, why do you think he should be fired? Because that we all played sports. I mean, yes, there's bias, especially in small towns. There's going to be some bias. There's going to be some politics. There's going to be some, like you said, there's some, family issue, all that kind of stuff going on. So,
and that's why, it's just a shame, man. You wish it didn't happen. It was
because
totally
now it is. If it kind of ends up that coach, who wants to coach there now? You know what I mean? Like you got to step in and coach. What kind of players are you going to have? Are the players
are
break out?
pissed. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And
some
then
players
maybe
might
not
break
because of the coach, but they're like, I mean, seems like the majority of the players are coming to this guy's defense.
Absolutely.
So what a shitty situation.
Totally shitty, you know, and Durand has always been one of, I mean, when I grew up, man, they were our top rival, but you hate to see this, you know, I mean, there are a lot of great people over there and they had finally turned their program around and it's just a sad thing to see it come to this. So we had to have at least our commentary on it. You know, we don't know all the facts, but we laid out what we know. We'll wrap this segment up, boys, with some high school basketball, November basketball, boys basketball. Well, last week we had Durand, the Railroaders, ironically enough, down in Clio, 72-41. Jacob Nebo had 21 to lead the way there. And they've got a pretty good little basketball program going in Durand now, too. New Lothrop down Burton Atherton, 52-26. Brady Coleman had 13 points, 8 assists. Perry Ramblers get a W. They now Burton Bentley, 71-57. Anthony Cochran, 19 points in that one. Got to send a shout out to Owasso's Lillian Pumford at the swimming state final. She finished 4th in the state in the 100-yard butterfly. School record for Lillian. So congratulations to her. Nice. That is the Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency, and stay tuned. We'll see what comes out of the Railroad City down the road. We'll be back, take a look at Michigan. We're just chomping at the bit to talk about the Wolverines, talk a little Lions, and put this pot away right after this.